Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. Man, all the way from New York City. And tonight we have a very special guest. But before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Tubakshata Radio, where you can listen to this interview live in high quality. We are also now available on Spotify, YouTube, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Meaning is after today, you can listen to this interview on all of those platforms and more. But tonight, people, on season 5, our first guest of the night, we have the amazing Anara Frank.
Hey, Diamond. It's so
Hey.
great to be here with you tonight. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely, Anara. I mean, as we've talked privately, our paths have actually crossed probably many times throughout the years, especially in this dance scene with me having travels to Boston to perform in previous years, but also having people, common friends with Tina Cavicchio, Kyla Hallams, Lemire, and so many others. And they really recommended me to have this talk with you tonight because for them, you being such an inspiring individual, and also me really looking into your story so much more, seeing how much you've done for your community over the past, over the many years, really. And tonight, it's truly an honor to have you on the platform.
Thank you so much. Such a
Yes,
pleasure.
absolutely. And for me, with many of my guests or all of my guests, we really focus on talking about the history, the journey of how everything came to be. Because a lot of times with us artists, they see us on a stage, they see us on a flyer, but a lot of times they don't really understand us. Uh, and I think tonight definitely we'll get a really a good glimpse of who Anara truly is. But also before we do get started, we also will be having real live time comments coming in. For example, my guy Mike Bayo here saying, Anara, what's up, girl?
Hey, Mike.
Yes, as well as Miss Caitlin here saying, I am here, excited. Man. And for me, Anara, I love artists like yourselves because the fact that you give so much back to your community, I think this is a perfect place, a safe space, in my opinion, that we can celebrate you and everything you've been able to accomplish, all the lives you've impacted, and now having this moment, this one on one time to really celebrate your success. So, for me, Anara, I would love to know, I really want to take it all the way back to, who was Anara before MetaMovements?
Ooh, how far back we going?
I mean, as far back as you want to go.
Okay. Um, well, I guess I would have to say that before MetaMovements, I ran another dance company. It was called Jamnastics. And I ran that for 15 years before taking a pause because I had a tumor. And after I was able to recover from the tumor, I didn't want to be too distant from the dances that I loved. And so even though I couldn't really dance yet, I started a new organization to be able to consult and help others with their dance schools, with their dance programs, with their dance careers. And as I started to be able to dance again, under the same name, started offering classes and programs again. And so now it seems more like a little tiny space in between Jamnastics and MetaMovements, but really kind of like they're all one. And the students and the teachers who came out of each program are all one in my mind, just through the many years that we've been doing this work in the community of Boston. So a long journey. Starting in 1990, by the way. So now
Wow.
in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think officially 30 years. And I think it's amazing to hear because we understand, especially through these last 30 years, how many companies, how many businesses, how many collectives have come and gone. And realizing that for many artists and creatives, it's hard to really reinvent yourself, to stay relevant, to stay consistent, because there's always something new ahead.
It's
So
true.
I would love, like you talked about gymnastics. What were those experiences like for you, really in the start of it? Like you said, I believe you said this was around 1990.
Yeah.
So what was it like back then, and around that period, being in that type of company?
Well, to start, as you can probably tell, in 1990, I was pretty much a child. And when I started that company, I just wanted to be able to, like you said, give back to my community. I had ended up teaching a lot of gymnastics and movement in a park and like in the street and on the playgrounds. And another local youth organization said that they wanted a place for youth to be able to teach and to be able to share with other youth. So they gave me some space.
Hmm.
And they encouraged me to start a company, even though I was very young, and let other artists get involved and come with me. And that was the beginning. Gymnastics was born. It was gymnastics, hip hop, and Latin dance
Mm.
from the beginning. And then any artists who wanted to share another dance, like from their culture or from their background or their training, could. But the three main tenets were gymnastics, hip hop, and Latin dance, and that continued for many years. An amazing collective group of young people coming together to help other young people and help people be able to live a life in their passion, share it with their community, and help Boston be a place that could be welcoming for young artists.
And as you talk about with gymnastics, with doing gymnastics, hip hop, and Latin, during that period in time, with in terms of dances, was Latin dance really prevalent as much as hip hop or gymnastics kind of in the Boston area?
Well, that's a really great question. I mean, one of the funny things they say is, it was a partly a hip hop company, but we didn't use the word hip hop yet.
Mm.
We weren't saying hip hop as a genre at the time. And I would say the same thing with Latin dance.
Mm.
Not that there wasn't Latin dance, but we weren't looking at it at the time as a genre or as a full art form. And I think one thing that was important to me and the other young people that I was collaborating with is how real and how artistic hip hop and Latin dance were for us.
Mm.
That even though they might not be recognized in our community as true art forms, people look at them as like, oh, something young folks do,
Yeah.
right? Well, something young folks do. We wanted people to see them as art forms that could be beautiful on a stage,
Mhm.
art forms that were relevant enough to have in classes, to be able to have in schools, to have events, to have festivals. And we wanted to be a part of making those names household names that were accepted and appreciated and respected. And so at the time, no, there was very little Latin um, people would just say, "Oh yeah, you know that stuff you do at a party." Like, but I mean, not even, not even to separate in a way merengue, salsa, and bachata in their
Mhm.
heads. Never mind many other styles. So no, it was not prevalent. And I remember when we were trying to make it so, trying to make spaces for it, that we would go as a group of dancers to a Latin night and we would have plans for how to bribe the DJ to play more than one salsa. We would usually get el preso. Most nights we'd get el preso at one point in time, but to get maybe two salsas or three salsas, we would like have drinks for him, snacks for him. So no, there was not a salsa scene. I'll say that.
Mm.
There were people who love Latin music and dance, but it was very much like Latin music and dance as they had seen it in their home country or as they had
Yeah.
experienced it growing up, but not as something that was a profession, not as something that would be taught in a reputable class, not as something that would be put on a stage and given the respect that we wanted to try to help it have. And so, no, in those ways, it didn't feel. It didn't feel present in Boston, and also in 1990 there wasn't a salsa scene. Like you couldn't go out and salsa dance. You
Mm.
could get like one song, more, and a lot of freestyle. We had a lot of freestyle, house and merengue.
Wow, and see, that's interesting because a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to Latin music, it can be in the households, but there was a time that it was mainly just in the household, it was kind of taboo to see it in a mainstream setting. I think the early 90s, mid 90s, even me younger, I still was kind of exposed of realizing living in New York, we kind of getting the first type of dance schools, of salsa schools, my first introduction, and realizing like, wait, not everybody's like New York. And I mean in the sense that not everybody has a studio. The scene is not exactly the same.
Exactly.
And then, and one thing I found really interesting, what you said earlier, was that you were very young when starting this and realizing the responsibility that you have in order to create a company like gymnastics and being focused on appreciating all styles, but also working with many people accordingly. How was that experience of being a young adult, kind of putting yourself in that role of being the director of this company?
I definitely didn't set out to put myself in that role. So we'll
Mm,
start. I was a kid who happened to fall into Dreamers Inc., this other organization that existed at the time to provide young people with a space for their creative energies. And they encouraged me to teach, and they encouraged me to create and to choreograph and to present. And they encouraged me that I needed to have my own organization because they were planning to close. And so I think that one big piece was the encouragement that I got from them and from collaborating with other dancers who were there at the time. And also shortly after that, 1990, I went to live with some of my family in Cuba, and I stayed there for about 9 months, and that was quite a different experience for me. At the time, people from the United States didn't go back and forth to Cuba. We were in the middle of a Cold War, and the Soviet Union had just fallen.
mm,
And it was quite a dramatic time to be an American in Cuba. And for the most part, no one knew any Americans. I mean, I remember in school, people would come into my class and pinch me to see what I felt like, and like pull on my hair to see what it was like, and ask me all sorts of questions. So it was definitely a very different experience, but it was an incredible experience. And one of the things that I took away from that was that all of my teachers, my classmates, my community there, my family there said, you have a responsibility. You need to be some type of a cultural ambassador. You need to let people know about the music and dance we
mm,
have here. You need to share it with people. Who else is going to tell people there's something beautiful in Cuba? Everyone thinks that everything in Cuba is horrible. Who else is going to tell them? So you need to go back and find a way to tell people that we're here, and to tell people that we love dance and music as much as you do. And you need to find a way to help kids in your community because you've had incredible opportunities and you need to help others. So this push was really strong, and I took it really seriously. Like, they said, this is your life's path, help people
mhm,
with gymnastics and dance. And I was like, okay, I'm here. What do I do? So I definitely didn't set out to become a director, but
mhm,
I did hear that there was work that needed to be done, and I was willing to do the work. And whether I was a leader or a follower didn't matter. And I always had partners. I don't think I've ever really been the leader. It's always been a collective effort at all times, at every time that I can think of in this program. I think the fact that I'm still here probably makes a
mhm.
difference because I have a history, but it's always been a collective effort, always had other leaders working along with me, and there's no way I could have ever done the things I did without them. So
Yeah.
definitely a team effort in every way, and not set out to be the director of a company, just kind of
It kind of just like you said, fell into your lap in a sense.
fell into it,
I
yes.
mean, but I think it happens for certain people. Like you said, if you're willing to put the work in, if you're willing to work hard for what you want, the rewards you will reap what you sow. But also something you talked about that was really interesting was the topic of Cuba, because a lot of people have to understand. For many who don't, if who haven't went to social studies classes, there was a time when being Cuban or people traveling to Cuba was seen as taboo. But fast forwarding now, and a lot of the artists and dancers we know in our communities traveled to Cuba to kind of get that feeling and get that understanding of things they didn't know, and realizing with especially with Cuban dance, how um to be honest, mainstream it's become over the years with different artists like Maykel Fonts, and with social media, people being able to see the beauty of Cuba, the beauty of Cuban dancing, Cuban music, and you yourself taking it upon yourself, to travel, to go to Cuba, come back, help people from your community understand. Because, I mean, when you're not given the knowledge and understanding and information, then you're kind of left blind. You're kind of left to the media sources giving you what they know about it. But I think it's awesome to see already, like you said, at your young age, being able to travel to Cuba and come back and help people understand more. So from gymnastics, how did that and like you said, I think you said it was kind of quick in a sense, but how was that transition from going to gymnastics then to creating what we know now as meta movements?
Well, gymnastics is and was and always will be dear to my heart. It was a program that I don't think I would have ever chosen to leave.
Mm,
But I had been diagnosed with a tumor and it was getting bigger and it was becoming harder and harder to do things. The tumor was in my leg.
mm,
And so my ability to teach, my ability to perform was going down, 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 down. And it had gotten to a place where I was basically running things behind the scenes and moving as little as possible.
mm.
Um, and trying to teach from a chair. Did a lot of teaching from a chair
Ah,
or like standing and like teaching turn patterns, but more or less in place. But I knew that I wasn't able to continue. I had to have surgery, and they said I might not walk after that. So I left the company and made sure that there were people there to continue, and I supported from outside. And when I got a little bit better, we met and talked about, what could I do on my own that wouldn't be in any way competition with gymnastics. And so that's when we set up MetaMovements. And so the first piece was as a consulting organization where I could help other dance organizations, including gymnastics, be able to have the success they were seeking. And
mm,
so that was the first thing I did. And then as I started to be able to dance again, kind of students floated over and I had some private lessons. And then next thing you know, the group classes started and things just happened.
yeah.
But I didn't know that I was starting another dance company. I really did think I was starting a consulting company. And I don't think I know how to be without dance. So as soon
Mm,
as I could dance, dance came back to me. And eventually gymnastics had me carry on with the Latin dance component of what we had done in that organization. And they continued for as long as they stayed open with hip hop and gymnastics. And then eventually they subdivided more into smaller groups because it was when we were going through the world financial crisis, 2008.
yeah.
They decided that as a nonprofit, it wasn't possible to stay viable. I
Yeah.
think the state cut like 80% of funding of the nonprofit arts organizations, and it wasn't viable to stay an organization. But amazing artists from that era are still doing the work. They're still in schools. They're still in youth centers. They're still serving kids
Mm,
with pop and gymnastic classes. So I'm super happy to have been a part of that, but also happy that there was that one little moment when
yeah.
they said, here, take this and do something with it. And so then Meta Movements became a dance company again. And
Mhm.
it's gone in lots of different directions. We did a lot of work creating programs for people who lacked access to dance. Work with people who are deaf and hard of hearing, people with other types of disabilities, disabled veterans, children and youth obviously has been a huge part of what I do, seniors programs. So looking for ways that the whole community can be involved and creating events where the whole community can come together and feel safe. So a Latin dance event that is welcoming to people who are deaf and hard of hearing, welcoming to disabled veterans so that everybody could come together and really celebrate Latin dance as a
Yeah.
whole community. So that's been a big part of our work. And then also really, like you said, the connection to Cuba.
Yeah.
Wanting to make sure that through the Cold War period, when people weren't going to Cuba, that Cuba wasn't forgotten as part of salsa,
Yeah.
and the contributions that Cuba made to this dance I'm so passionate about, I wanted to make sure was coming out as much as possible. So, inviting Cuban artists to come here, inviting artists from the United States to go to Cuba and participate in cultural exchanges there, bringing back as many elements of music and dance here as I could, and just helping that exchange continue, supporting young artists in Cuba,
Mm.
has been, I think, a really important part of MetaMovement's mission. And now, connected to you, probably why I'm here
Yeah.
today, we also have a program with young artists in the Dominican Republic.
Oh,
And helped exchange happen between those two countries directly, and then also, of course, for Americans to travel to the Dominican Republic and really learn from the source about the history of bachata, and support the young artists there who are continuing to develop the art, continuing to
absolutely.
develop the art. So
Absolutely. And for me, it's so important because we realize a lot of people get misinformation and not realizing, especially when it comes to this thing that we love called dance, but specifically the genre or the style of salsa, realizing how integral Cuba is to the success of salsa, to the creation of salsa dancing, that you can say. Um,
mm.
and I find that so remarkable, you being able to allow people to learn and you're giving back to your community. So, talking now about meta movements and having, like you said, that moment of gymnastics saying, hey, take this part of our dynamic and run with it and see what you can do while we take this side. So, when you were able to now transition from gymnastics to meta movements. How was the Boston scene, or when did you realize kind of the scene of Boston with terms of dancing, Latin music, salsa specifically, started to kind of grow? Because, like you said, 1990, there was not even a thought of salsa.
Well, there was a little thought of salsa.
Okay.
There's some wonderful people
Hmm.
teaching salsa from their cultural backgrounds.
Hmm.
Amazing instructors who really cared a lot about their students. There were music series. There's an amazing radio show. You probably heard of Jose Maso and Con
Hmm.
Salsa. So definitely there was salsa here, but it wasn't a salsa scene, as we
Yeah.
like to say, the way we refer to it today. But that salsa scene definitely built in my time at gymnastics, for sure.
Hmm.
I didn't come to Meta Movements feeling like there wasn't a scene. There was a wonderful scene, and something that I have been so happy to, as an artist, grow up in, if you will, in this salsa scene where uh, organizations, all the dance schools, we really care about each other. You know, we visit each other, we support each other's events, we support each other's studios, we like each other's things online. You
Yeah.
know, we are each other's biggest supporters. And I think at any time over the years where we felt competition,
Hmm.
usually it's come between our students. And so a few of us will get together and we'll be like, oh, that competition thing's happening again. So then we figure out things we can do together, you know, like
Yeah.
unifying socials, outdoor events, like what can we do? Because our salsa scene is beautiful when we're all in it together. And when there are multiple styles. I mean, if you look at the Boston scene, everybody's school is so different. And
Mm.
we can support each other in that way by keeping all of our voices here and by keeping all of us involved. So I think I definitely felt we had a salsa community, a small one, but a
Mhm.
salsa community while I was still at gymnastics. And thankful to so many people, like we said, April Genovese
Mhm.
earlier, the
Yes.
Masacote, Salsi Control. We had we have Rumba y Timbal. We had
Yep.
Lenya back in the day. I mean, we have also all the companies that are just outside of Boston. You know, so many people supporting this scene. We had amazing nightclubs and promoters. We got all of our DJs. Oh my goodness, our DJs in this scene. We have wonderful DJ. We had DJ Rob, DJ Hernan. We have Sonerito. We have Johnny. We have like so much good
Yeah.
energy in our scene. And so I think just being a part of that, I didn't want to leave the scene.
Mm.
So when I started Meta Movements, I didn't think, oh, the scene needs
Yeah.
a dance company. We were good. What I do think is that I wanted to offer a space, like the name Meta Movements indicates, where people who wanted to heal through dance, who were ready for some type of personal transformation, physical, mental, spiritual, through dance, could have a place to do so with someone who was going through that herself. So I think when I first started Meta Movements, that was very present in that people knew that I was learning to walk again and that I was wanting to share that
Yeah.
with my students, and that dance could really be a tool for healing. And so I think it started, my time at Meta Movements really started with that, started with making sure that we have so many more segments of our population included in the Latin dance world
Hmm.
and bridging those gaps. And then, as a person who had taught many of the directors when they were young, kind of remembering to keep our eye on our unity,
Yeah.
seeing what we can do to stay together, to stay supporting each other. So I think those are things that I've looked for in my role at Meta Movements. Not necessarily that we needed one more Latin dance company, but maybe there were things I could provide to the scene
Hmm.
by continuing. And so I've always strived to look for, where's the thing that I can give to the scene today? What's the thing I can bring this month? So there's been many times that I haven't had any group classes.
Yeah.
Um, Really just focused on events, travel, helping people exchange between different countries. Sometimes when there is a need for group classes, like this summer, there was a big need for group classes in a park. I didn't know there was going to be a need for group classes in a park, but there was. There was such a need for group classes, and classes in a park.
Yeah.
Classes. So I think just looking for what can I contribute to the scene myself, and then what can I contribute by supporting the other directors and the other dancers in the scene to continue growing, so that this stays the amazing salsa scene that it is, community that we always like to invite people to come and join us in, and just be present for that. You know, when I'm in town, I'm not around a lot usually.
Mhm.
Pandemic, I'm not in Boston that much, but whenever I'm here, so much love for everybody here and trying to contribute to the scene in that way.
Man, it's special because realizing how involved you are in your community and focusing on collaboration. Because we definitely realize in life, but in business, no matter if the business is a nonprofit, sometimes a for profit, or just collectives and groups, there's always, in some ways, some type of competition. But having organizers and directors, or people like yourself, and many other organizers that you talked about, and dancers, seeing the amount of DJs and artists that you can just name, showing how much, and every time you say each name, seeing the smile, realizing that, especially in Boston, from also my travels to Boston, that was one thing I loved was, even in our scene, there's a difference between competition and just appreciating the art form of just going to a congress or a festival and performing. And I think that's different. But at the same time, you saying, no, I want to be able to work with everyone because, again, I believe this to the core that working together with each and every person is only going to help expand the community instead of separate the community, because it's so easy for a person to say, hey, I have money, I want to build a studio, I want students. But then you also have to worry about the people that have these businesses already. And instead of just saying, hey, I just want these people, I just want to have a huge studio with tons of students in it and take over. No, people like yourself are saying, no, we want to work together because together we can really accomplish anything. Um, and for example, is here, a person I love a lot, Lemire here, giving some love to us here in the interview, as well. A very special person, Mr. Norberto Beto Herrera, saying, Anara is such a jewel in our dance scene, a great person, and an awesome dance educator. And as well, the one and only Kyla Hallams, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, saying she loves us both. And also with Beto saying earlier that that Cuba trip is awesome. And, because realizing too, people kind of want to get in touch with the roots. So,
Mhm.
question I have now is with Meta Movement starting, and like you said, you being in the salsa scene, what were those experiences like of going to congresses, going to festivals with your team, and really kind of sense networking, but kind of stepping into a new world in a sense?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, my earliest memories of congresses were definitely as gymnastics,
Hmm.
and they were so much fun. I mean, we had such a great time there. I think being from Boston,
Hmm.
not on the map, if you will, gave us the freedom to just love dancing. You
Yeah.
know, like we could go to a congress in 2000, 2001, 2, 3, and just be there to love dancing
Hmm.
because other people were vying for the top spots, you know? And it was amazing. It was incredible. Those Congress days, and you just be on the dance floor, like really from what 8 p.m. to like 4 a.m. and you didn't want to stop and you're
Yeah.
dancing on the rug. Yeah, like congresses, boy, that was my lifeblood. I loved congresses, and I remember even when I would go when I had the tumor, I would be like, okay, painkillers, no problem. Wrap that leg up, like I'm here. Like there's no
Oh
way I'm not
man.
touching this one. And so yeah, I absolutely love congresses. I love getting together with people, and I love looking now at like all the people that I remember, like let's say dancing with when they were just getting started, and now they have this incredible story and success.
Yeah.
It's just Congress is like that's our place where we bonded, right? That's
Right.
our place where we came together back in the day. Um, Going as MetaMovements has also been really special for me. The first team that I had as MetaMovements was definitely a lot of people who were in that phase that I talked about of healing their bodies through dance. Not necessarily people who would have seen themselves as dancers, people who would overcome car accidents. I did have an amazing dancer on our team. Her name is Carrie Thompson, and she is not only deaf, but she's also partially blind. She was performing with us when we went to our first congresses. And so just having a team of incredible people supporting each other through their healing or through their growth in dance was wonderful. So that was kind of like my first phase at congresses with Meta Movements. Then I had a whole bunch of people with me, and we were all there having these experiences and connecting to people. And then I think my later experiences with Meta Movements were trying to open that door for conversation about Cuba and
Mm.
about including Cuba. You know, having Cuban artists here when I could. It was definitely challenging to be able to do that with U.S. laws, but when possible, having Cuban artists able to come and supporting Cuban artists here
Hmm.
wherever possible with sharing their art and educating us about the orishas and about the history behind salsa and opening the door for people to ask questions, putting together shows that had Cuban culture or Cuban influence in them before it was cool to do so. And encouraging people to talk about it, and have those conversations. Often I would try to have a table with information about being able to travel to Cuba.
Mm.
Um, and always looking at it as a cultural exchange. Like,
Yeah.
we never really looked at going to Cuba for tourism because so many groups were doing that. And of course, that's important too. But what we were trying to do was have kind of like by, for, and about artists. Artists come together, artists share dance, artists have conversations about all the isms, about the politics, about racism, about sexism, about homophobia. Like, what could we do together? And that's the kind of program that I wanted to be a part of. And that's what I tried to be a part of when I would go to congresses and able to talk to people about that. And
Mm.
so fortunate to meet people like Beto through that type of work. So many incredible people. And I think that was a lot of my focus in my later years at congresses was sharing the opportunity for exchange with artists from Cuba and the DR who people
Mhm.
hadn't heard and helping them get a spotlight in this scene.
That's amazing because we realize too, a lot of those artists can sometimes be forgotten when their name is not kind of put out there, and it's really, man, it's so intriguing to know that people who have been able to go to those trips, like Elisa here says, they can be life changing because your eyes are opening up to something probably you don't know or have no knowledge of, and realizing that you've kind of been that person to allow artists from the Dominican Republic, from Cuba, to come to the States, for people to really be inspired by. And realizing too, what I love is what you talked about of you going to events, and it's not just also about dancing on a stage, going to socials every night, which are fun, but also you being one of those people starting those really important conversations that I think we've always wanted. And a lot of times we have, but for example, we usually have it in the hotel room when we're with a couple, yeah, we know, with a couple friends, having a drink or two and just talking amongst another. But I think what's really important was I started seeing events kind of recently or a few years ago, starting panels, starting forums, because I think it's very important because a lot of life's problems are still around us, even though we're at a Congress or a social. There are still situations that happen to everyone or to some people at events that can be deemed uncomfortable, topics that can be kind of seem taboo. But you being that conversation starter and kind of being that educator, I think that truly is what's needed.
Yeah, I mean, dance I think gives us a way to bond with people that we can open up doors to have those conversations. Maybe people we know through another aspect of our lives is harder to have those conversations with, but there's something about dance and the way that we connect on the dance floor, especially in our styles of dance,
Yes.
that it's almost like makes any conversation possible.
Mm.
And if that conversation is possible and it needs to be had, then let's push ourselves
Yes.
to have that conversation about whatever it is that needs to be talked about, because I think once we have that connection, it's almost like our dance form gives us a deeper connection, a deeper way of being with people that then can open the doors to help us be able to solve a lot of problems. And just to be a part of that is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah,
See whatever we can do to be of service, right? In this
absolutely.
world that's given us so much. Like, can you imagine, like, think diving for a second, like, what would your life look like without salsa?
Vastly different. I've heard it. I think about that a lot because you're realizing this scene, this community, however many years you've been involved, it kind of molds you. For me, being around adults like yourself, being a younger kid, I learned from people like you. Meaning is, I would go to these congresses as a teenager. Uh, Coming in saying, "Hey, I need to act appropriate. I need to act accordingly. I can't just see myself as a kid." Um, it's about that impression you give to people, but realizing that we had educators like yourself, we had people like yourself in the scene that were those conversation starters and putting our fears and struggles to the forefront and the things that we're concerned about. Realizing that the salsa scene, a community, is not just about dance; it's about community, it's about networking. It's about building collaborations and unity. So for me, I would definitely say to your question, vastly different. Yeah, I can't even see my life without it right now. I think it's been 25 years. So, I mean,
And
I'm
you
glad.
made it a conversation starter.
Exactly. And we realize this too. It's like, it's people like yourself that started those conversations and people like me that are just continuing the conversation because we realize generations change, and even when you talk about the congresses from the past, man, the memories I have of when people not just dancing on the dance floor, we had the good wood, but outside where the vendors are and the carpet areas and finding anywhere to dance and party and have a great time, but seeing the friendships of the people you've been able to meet, I think that's what's so important. I think the greatest thing in life is socialization because being able to meet different types of people um, is dope. And for me, I couldn't see my life without salsa. Um, and also seeing, and I would say from watching your company over the years through performances, but also as well as on YouTube and seeing the different projects that you've been able to create over the years, kind of with meta movements and as you said, starting all the way from the early 90s until almost even the present day, what have really been the biggest lessons or the biggest takeaways that you've been able to gain over the years?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, I mean, I guess I'll start with, I think, what we were just talking about, the feeling like where would our lives be, you and I, without
Hmm.
salsa. I think that's a big piece, like that realization of how much I have to thank salsa for,
Yeah.
how much I have to thank the salsa community for. Like, feeling like I don't know if I'd be walking today. I don't know what I would be doing. I can't even picture myself on the earth without everything that salsa has given me, and
Yeah.
without the health that salsa has given me, without the friendships, and without the direction. So it's like, of course I'm going to give back. Of course I'm going to be here, because if it did so much for me, it can do so much for another person.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of like one of the big takeaways, is just always looking for how I can give back, how tremendously much I've been able to gain from being involved in salsa and in this community. And then the other piece, I think, is looking at the conversation starting aspect
Yeah.
that you talked about, that it's like, once we realize how blessed we are to have salsa, right? What
Hmm.
salsa is doing for us, we we almost have to look at, like, okay, and what can we do with that? What change can we make in the world through this amazing tool, this most amazing tool that changed so much in our own lives? How can we then take a step to do something?
Hmm.
The privilege that I've had to be in salsa, the privilege I have to be in a country that has as much salsa as it
Yeah.
has my entire life, the privilege to have a passport that lets me go to other countries that not everybody has, the privilege to have had the ability to be here for all this time, the skin I'm in, the color I am, the life I've had, like, so much. Okay, what can I do with that? What can I do with that? Who am I? What am I going to do? And so I think that then that's the next question. That's why you and I are starting conversations.
Yes.
That is so much bigger than us. Like, we're thankful, but also we know it's a tool. Salsa is a tool
Absolutely.
to conversation. Salsa is a tool for changing people's lives. And I mean, think about how many people do you know, Diamond, who would say that salsa changed their mental health?
Many, many.
Uh-huh.
Um,
How many people did it change their physical health?
Same answer.
How many people did it make believe in themselves for the first time?
Even more.
How many people did it help discover their own sense of self, and what their beauty was, and what they had to offer, what their sexuality was? I mean, salsa give us so much, right?
Yeah.
And
It,
so we got to start the conversations. And we have to honor salsa, and we have to see what we can do with salsa, right? I mean, that's what you and I are doing, I think.
yeah. That's what I know. I mean, for me, what dance has been able to give me over the years, that self confidence, that understanding it, because really dance is, besides just salsa dancing, dance is a conversation that you're having with another person.
100%.
And, realizing that it's impacted my life, your life, and so many others that we know. I mean, people in the outside world wouldn't understand what it means. It's like when many of us are anticipating a specific event because we know all of our friends are going to be there. We're going to be having a good time in a good space with good music. And many people wouldn't understand. Like a lot of us, take vacation off of work just for those specific moments to have and realize those are life changing moments because year after year, new people you're meeting. And even for example, the guest we're having tomorrow, the one and only Super Mario, all the way, from Europe here, and even saying carpet dancing was the best, you know
Yeah.
as well as Miss Jocelyn Lee saying, Anara, you are an inspiration and we love you. And just a simple comment like this, I just see what inspiration and the gift of just appreciation you've given to your community, that they're giving it back tenfold because we understand the totality, the stress, the toll it can take on constantly doing for the community, but it's when you can feel that back, it means so much more. And even Caitlin here is saying, wow, Nara, you're gonna make me cry. What an inspiring conversation. But as well, what Mike Bayo says here is salsa is transformative. And
Transformative.
when he says that, I really agree because just as well as the generations change, the style of salsa changes, um, even from the partner work, the footwork, what have you. You see routines get bigger and better every year. But what the biggest thing I take away is growth. People are evolving year after year. And I think the conversations that myself and people like you are starting or have started for over these past decade or two, they've always been happening, but now more than ever, people are more receptive to listening because we realized when we were at these events, our focus was the group. Let's perform. Let's make sure everything's situated. And I think we always had those conversations with people that thought like us. But now, realizing the vast majority of dancers we meet are from all over the world and people have different opinions. And I think it's great when we have those conversations with people so we can learn because having too many yes people is not a good thing, in my opinion. But even something here Jocelyn says, and it's very true, that you are a true pillar of the Boston salsa community because realizing how you've changed people's lives for the better, um, that is no small task. Realizing that you've been able to impact people's mental, physical, spiritual health is something remarkable because it's not easy. You've come in contact with so many people over the years, and now people can say, how much you've meant to them. I think is beautiful. And then being able to see kind of fast forwarding, we've had meta movements um, throughout your life, and of course, congresses come and go, events are coming and going. What was it like for you after meta movements? Did you feel like you had another purpose in life, or kind of that was the focus for you throughout your time?
Um, I definitely would say that I think Meta Movements is a collective. First of all,
Yes.
it's a collective that has many artists in it, and I'm honored to be at the helm of it and making sure that it continues. But really, the work of Meta Movements is equally part of all of these artists who make it up. It's not
Mhm.
a one person project. So I see myself and my line of work separately from Meta Movements.
Mhm.
Um, I see Meta Movements, this beautiful thing that we've created together. And so while I would love to be able to continue to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form that I can to continue to support all of the people in it, I do also see, as you said, like my own path as
Mhm.
my own path. And I think that's one of the keys to the success of our collective at this time is that all of us are independent artists. All of us are working artists. All of us are artists who are looking for ways to continue our growth and to give back to the community at the same time. And we're just happy
Mhm.
to find a place where we can support each other. So I see that continuing to be Meta Movement's path. And I think the path that I'm looking at for myself, and it's funny, I was thinking about this when you bring up some of the people that I'm teaching, but also some of the people who've commented, like Mike and Beto, I think are also on this path of things that we can provide this new generations of salsa in terms of history, in
Mhm.
terms of pedagogy, in terms of dissecting and understanding the timing, in terms of looking at what we can do to develop our bodies, like almost like the science and the
Mhm.
training will behind the salsa so that the amazing artists of today can continue to take salsa to these high heights
Yes.
because they have now we can provide some of the tools. So I think that's what I'm looking at now is how to be able to provide those tools for
Mhm.
people, how to be able to provide people with the tools that are so important when they're building a career, how to be able to count on their body
Yeah.
for, as you've mentioned to me, flexibility,
Mhm.
how to push it to a higher level, how to build the strength people need, how to build the technique they need, in terms of pedagogy, how to break down skills, how to help people with different learning styles or different types of physical capacities to be
Mhm.
able to participate. When we look at history,
Yeah.
honoring the history behind salsa, learning about the roots of salsa, the dances that came before, the music that came before, the contributors. so that we can learn where it's going, because we got to study our past. I think these are the places where I would like to continue to work and continue to be able to share with people.
Yeah.
Then, of course, making sure that we also always look at that spiritual level, that the reason why we're so passionate about salsa, yes, is about the science behind it. Yes, is about the artistry. Yes, is about the history, but also what it gives to us spiritually, and making sure that we keep sharing that with people around us so that more and more people can benefit from it. So I'm looking for where my path is in those spaces, working and sharing these things online.
Hmm.
I'm super excited about the project of MetaMovements and House, about putting our teaching into a video platform so
Yeah.
that we can teach people online during the pandemic and, of course, after the pandemic. It's really important to me to be part of a community of artists that's ensuring that the platform is available also for people who haven't previously had access to that type of platform.
Hmm.
So including artists from Cuba and the DR who haven't been able to have that platform before is important to me as well. So keeping all of those things moving, and I'm really really excited about being able to launch that online platform where people can learn directly from artists in Cuba and the DR at this time where they can't travel there, and then of course to help people be able to continue to travel there in times after the pandemic, and to consider what's happening on those islands is not just the history,
Mm.
it's the future too. So many young artists creating, and we are now acknowledging a lot the history, but I do think that there's also this important creative space that's about creating happening still going on the islands, and making sure
Yeah.
that that stays in the forefront of our minds and is being talked about as well.
Absolutely. A question that I have that Jocelyn actually presented to me that I was going to bring up was the creation of Salsa in the Park and how that came about.
Oh, sure. Salsa in the Park. It was an interesting moment. It was just after I had left gymnastics. I'd been out for about a year, and I was helping gymnastics with a little bit of grant writing. And I was calling with some questions to the city about a grant I was about to submit for gymnastics, and they
Mhm.
were like, we need more submissions. Could you submit one too? And I was like, I don't know, what am I going to submit one for? And they're like, well, we're really looking for people to find creative solutions to city problems using dance.
Mm.
And it's like, well, those are my buzzwords. Okay, what are you looking for? And so they encouraged me to look at what was happening at one of the youth centers that I taught at for a long time, youth center in a particular neighborhood in Boston, that was asking for support because they had issues of violence going on outside their youth center, because the community they were in had changed so fast, and there were such different
Yeah.
clashing groups of individuals that it was creating violence. And so I worked with the community center, with the police, and with the salsa community to put together an event called Salsa in the Park, on the premises of the youth center, that would kind of eventually build a safe space there,
Mhm.
so that people loved the party so much that it no longer was going to be a space that was as attractive for violence. And it has grown over the years. I think our first year was 2007.
Mhm.
It's been going strong ever since. We get hundreds of people every week on Monday nights to participate there at the youth center. And it's a great cross section of the community, everyone coming together and really enjoying dance outdoors, as people do in so many amazing places around the world, right? There's like dancing outdoors. What else can we ask for?
Ha-
Um, and so I'm glad to be a part of that. And I think what we do to make it unique for us here in Boston is the outreach work to involve communities that don't always feel like they have a way to participate in salsa events.
Mhm.
Our partnership with Silent Rhythms involves people who are deaf, blind, hard of hearing, and deafblind to be able to participate fully. We work to create spaces for people to join playing instruments who may be physically handicapped or unable to participate physically. So looking for ways that the community can come together here, having things translated into different languages, but making it a community space and getting the respect from the city for salsa as the art form it deserves to be recognized as. So those are some little things we do with Salsa in the Park, and it's definitely a community event
Absolutely.
by
And
our community, by the community.
Gotcha. And at least before we get into our segment called the randoms, a few more questions I have. One of them comes actually from Mario. And before we get to the question, he says here that when we were learning back in the days without these social media distractions, we wanted to learn. But people these days all want to look good without the knowledge. And he says your thoughts, but it also comes with this question of, do you think people these days have the patience to learn all of this?
Wow, wow, wow. Such a good question. First, Mario, hi. Oh my goodness, it's been like way, way, way too long. Looking forward for this pandemic to be over so that we can
Yeah.
be dancing in the same space again. Okay, so big question. So the first thing is, I definitely think that there are different phases of learning. And I think that different people are going to engage in salsa in different ways. And one of the beauties of the things that have happened over the years is that salsa is accessible for different people for different reasons. So I agree. There are definitely people in salsa who want to look good. And you know what? That's an entry. That's a pathway. You want to look good. And so then you start practicing so that you can look a little bit better. And as your curiosity is piqued, you're going to want to learn more. So I think that the pathway of looking good is an acceptable entry point because it's something that probably inspires a lot of people to dig deeper at some point in time. Now, if the entire salsa world is only focused on looking good, absolutely. We're going to forget the science of our turn patterns. We're going to forget all of the history that comes behind this dance that we love.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm ready to accept it as one way in.
Mm.
And I think that if we can excite younger generations or new people to look at salsa and be like, wow, they look so good, I want to do that,
Yeah.
then that's like our gateway. And then we say, oh, I can help you look good. It's not just like I was born like this. It's like there's technique behind it that I can give you that's going to help you look good. And I say, but what if I told you that I could also help you feel good?
Mm.
Would that be of interest to you too? And what if I told you that I could also help you help your partner feel good?
Mm.
Would that be of interest to you too? And what if I told you that I had secrets that could make your partner feel amazing and actually help uplift them when they were feeling bad? Would you want to do that too? So it's like you're giving them little bits of what if this was possible too. And so I think that we can utilize that door of I want to look good as a pathway in to be able to do other things. And once people start to walk in, then they'll be like, oh, there's history behind this. Oh, what is the history behind this?
Mm.
You know, what have you learned in all these years in there? But it's not going to be at jump. You know, we can't like expect them to walk one toe into the door of a nightclub and be ready to learn about the orishas, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't expect them to start there. But if we help them have fun at that nightclub,
Hmm.
we help them look good at the nightclub because you know they want to look good at the nightclub.
Yeah.
And we give them an inkling that there's a science behind it that will make them keep looking better, keep feeling better, and keep making their partners more excited to dance with them. Then maybe they'll come back. And then we can keep engaging them
Mhm.
and keep working on that learning process. Now, I understand when people who are teachers feel sad because there was kind of this golden era in salsa where everyone wanted to know the science and everyone wanted to know the history and everybody wanted to train, right? Like we wanted to
Yeah.
train, had the grit to train. And there's a feeling now sometimes that like people don't have that grit. But I just think it's because of the massiveness now of how many people are in the salsa community. You
Mm.
know, we had a little tiny community back then. It's like we all had grit together, right?
Yeah.
But like it, you know, now salsa is massive. It's like $1 billion industries, you know, based on salsa. And like that's how we're surviving off of salsa. That's how we're making a living. So let's be thankful for the
Yeah.
$1 billion industries of salsa and for all those people who want to look good. Because the people who want to look good probably are paying our bills. The beginners are probably more paying our bills, right?
Yeah.
And so it's okay. That's where they're at right now. Let me help them look good now. Let me help them look a little better. Let me help them feel a little better. Let me help them think about their partner. Okay, now they're going to start to ask more questions. And so I'm okay with that as an entry point, as long as Mario and Beto and you and I, that we don't lose focus on that there's more than that. I think the problem happens when we forget that there's more behind it. It's
Mhm.
okay if the first students are there as an entry point, but we have to remember and we have to keep that alive, and we have to put the tidbits out there that make people ask questions. We have to make sure we say there is a history behind this. There's actually some really intriguing stories that I could tell you.
Mm.
There is a way to look at this as the science of term patterns that makes your partner feel magical. So it's like we're putting that out there like breadcrumbs for them to come
Yeah.
and ask for. Now I think they'll come and get it, but we can't shove it down their throats.
Mm.
We got to start with looking good.
Absolutely.
So
And the last question I have before we get into the closing and the random segment is I would love for you to expound and talk about your new project that you've been working on, or even stuff that I've seen that we've talked about of helping through healing through dance, the projects you've been able to do, the house you've been able to create for dancers and artists, something we've talked about that I feel is truly empowering. Definitely would love to give myself and the audience your information on this beautiful project or projects you've been able to create.
okay. Well, I mean, I guess I'll say first that the pandemic hit hard for all of us. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, that was like, wow, like bigger than a ton of bricks. I don't know how big we can go here, but it's like a building fell, on top of all of us, and in the Salsa community for sure. And felt like overnight we lost all of our access to do our jobs, to earn money, our passions, the way
Mm.
we enjoyed ourselves, everything was gone. And so I tried to look for, okay, well, where it seems like I can do nothing, where is some little something that I can do? And there were kind of a few things that happened at once. And I'm thankful because I feel like I am smiling today
Yeah.
because of these little things that happened. But one thing that happened is I was running an Airbnb, my house here, and I could no longer run it. And so I decided to invite artists who wanted to live together during the pandemic to come and join me.
Mm.
And so some people from MetaMovements and some people not from MetaMovements, so we kind of made a little artist house here.
Mm.
And that for me has been like a lifeline. I'm very, very thankful to be here in the house during the pandemic and have artists who think a lot like me that I can work and grow with and live with as we address the challenges that we're facing. Another thing that happened is I realized that we can't do trips to Cuba and the DR during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And although that's hard for us, is probably more challenging for artists there who have come to count on the trips as a source of income, as they earn money through tourism, through dance tourism, but tourism nonetheless. And if there is no tourism, how do they survive?
Yeah.
And so looking at how to build an online platform for classes as quickly as possible that could utilize the work that artists could produce in a cell phone and
Mm.
actually make something happen with it. And so that project that's so important to me was also important to the other artists living in my house. So we've had kind of a project to work on together, which I think has been key for us in the pandemic, that we have this thing that we're focusing on that's bigger than ourselves. We want to have our classes available online. We want to be able to still do our art and still teach, but we also want young artists in the DR and Cuba to have the ability to do that as well. So we are dedicated to building this for them also and making sure that we can all do this together, that my classes are available, that their classes are available. And so not only living with artists has helped me, but also living with a group of artists who's working on this project with me together. It's like it makes us feel united. And so I'm super, super excited about the launch of this website that people can actually now start to join. So if people want to join us, they can, and they can be able to take classes with artists in the DR Cuba, but also take classes from those of us who are working in the project here in the United States, such as myself. So I'm super excited to be offering that. And then the last piece is that all of us artists living together and working on a project also needed to stay doing art, right? We also needed to stay dancing. We needed to stay moving. And so one thing that happened is that I started to teach a lot of things that I might not have always been teaching because it wasn't what the public asked for. So, I wouldn't go to a Congress and teach acrobatics. I wasn't going to a Congress and teaching Cuban contemporary or any of the biomechanics behind the movements that we were doing. I was going and teaching a turn pattern, right? I mean, so so it was pushing me to teach things that I hadn't been teaching in a long time because I didn't have a school right now,
Mhm.
and I've been more helping other people teach. And so it's been an incredible experience to be practicing teaching things that I haven't taught in so long, but that are so much a part of me as an artist. So that has been incredible, and I'm really thankful to all of them who live in my house and those who live near enough to come work with me in a park. That I've gotten to be teaching gymnastics, flexibility, fitness, how to change your body into the body it is that you want to be dancing and moving in.
Mhm.
I've been really excited to be teaching, like I said, Cuban contemporary and other things that I've learned in Cuba over the years. And so it's been incredible to be teaching and moving in a time where I wouldn't normally be able to because
Yeah.
we're in a pandemic and it's hard to have students. So I got to do all of that in one, and I've been trying with the help of the artists in my house to put all of the things I'm teaching into the videos so that people
Mm.
can access them in the library along with everything else. And I guess that's what's driving me now, like being ready to answer people's questions about how to transform their body, how to overcome injuries, how to live with chronic pain and dance through it. All of those types of things that my life has kind of presented to me as challenges. I'm really excited to be able to help other people overcome those challenges and find love inside there in their bodies and dancing, just like I have.
Absolutely. And now that helps me transition. We've been able to hear so much enlightening stories and experiences and memories. Now it helps me transition to a segment that I have called The Randoms, which will allow myself and the audience to get to know a little bit more about you um, in a very fun setting. So definitely just let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right.
Just remember, not too much laughing.
Oh, no, no, no. Don't worry about that.
I have a cough, and so laughing is not
I
as fun
got
as.
you. No worries. All right. Number one is your favorite food.
Oh wow. Well, I'm gonna have to mess with your game right from the beginning
Mm.
because one challenge that I've had my whole life is that I actually don't believe in favorites.
Mm.
But I will say that there's lots of food that I love. So I can answer that. But it's funny, even since I was little, this is
Mhm.
probably the best answer I'm going to give you to all of the answers in here, is that I used to get in trouble because I didn't have favorites. And so because I thought
Mm.
people wanted me to have favorites, I'd make them up, but I couldn't remember. So then I would get people get mad at me because I would change my favorite color or I would change my favorite animal. You're not supposed to change, you're lying. But really I didn't have one. I liked so many. So
Mm.
favorites has always been a little funny thing inside me. When people say favorites, I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do now?
Mm.
So that is my first answer, is that I don't have a favorite anything really. I
Mhm.
love food. I love so many kinds of food. Where
Okay.
can we begin? Can I eat all sorts of different food? Well, to start with, let's see. I love making food.
Okay.
I love ice cream. I love pasta. I love rice and beans. I love
Hey.
plátanos. I like so many foods. I like soup. I like to eating different things and I like changing it up. So I'm sorry that I don't have a favorite, but
Or even maybe I would say a go-to meal, something you can like whip up really good. If somebody was like, if you had a guest come over, what's like a dish that you love making?
all right. So to be real, I
Hmm.
would honestly start to think first also about what they would love, right? So I would be like,
Mm.
so what is it that they like? And I would ask them, just like you asked
Okay.
me, do you have something favorite? Do you have something that you like? And then they would be like, oh, I like, I don't know, I like rice and beans. Okay, let's see what I got in the fridge to put with that. So I like making things up. So I'll go to the fridge and I like to see, okay, I got this and this. These don't go together, but you know what? Let me make something.
Yeah.
So like making magic out of
Okay.
that. Definitely one of my favorite things. Putting a bunch of things in a pot with rice and vegetables and
Mm.
beans and other stuff and seeing what I could put together.
Okay.
Yeah. And if someone has a favorite dish, you know that I'm going to be looking up and trying to figure out how to make it.
Hey, I like that. I love that. I love that. All right. Next question would be if you're working out, what's a really like a a song that just gets you right in the mood.
All right. So I love working out with music. Of course, now you know I don't have favorite music, but I
Uh-huh.
do love working out with music. I love like timba of today. Like I love timba music, and it definitely pushes me when I'm working out so much. Um, I love Michael Blanco. I love Alexander Abreu. Definitely Elito Rebe. So I will put on like some mixes of theirs a lot of
Mhm.
times when I'm working out. But you know, I also really like '90s hip hop. In the in the
Ooh,
Emma
okay.
house, we joke a lot. They were always listening to '90s hip hop. So you know, Mary J. Blige, Heavy
Ooh, I
D.
like that.
So that's like another type of workout music for us. And so you know, we mix it up. We mix it up. Sometimes we go back to the '60s,
Okay.
listen to some Marvin, and work out with that. So we definitely change it up so that it's not the same every day.
Mhm.
But those are some of my favorites
I
with an
like
F.
that. Your musical selection is very eclectic, and I definitely respect that, and I love that. This next question would be, what is a dream vacation destination for you? If you could close your eyes and be anywhere right now, where would it be?
Okay, so if it was right now, I would definitely have to say that I would go see family in Cuba right now.
Mm,
I think about it every day, and I miss the fact that I used to be able to go back and forth so many times in a year,
mhm.
and I miss them tremendously. And it's been like a second home for so much of my life that I miss that a lot, and I would love to be there. And I gotta say that once some people brought me to the Dominican Republic to start a program there, it jumped in my heart the same way. So I miss Las Terrenas and I
Mhm.
miss my friends in Santo Domingo. So I think if I got to take a vacation now at this point in the pandemic, I would want to go visit people that I love, you know. And when the pandemic's over, try to go back and visit every person that I love in different places because it's been too long.
Absolutely. All right. Next question is, I'm actually going to take a page from Mario. He has a question here. Be funny. He says, Ishmael, Eric, Milton, or me? Who did you enjoy dancing with the most from the dinosaur time?
Okay, so on my pattern of not having favorites, let me say
Uh-huh.
that there are things that I love about so many of those dancers. Like like for example, you got Ismael putting you through moves that you did not know were gonna happen
Yeah.
and making you smile while doing it. You got Super Mario making magic that you don't know where the touch is coming from or where that hand is sneaking
Yep.
to, but you are just loving every minute of it. You got Milton with his musicality. I mean, how you gonna make me pick? Can I have one of each? One
Absolutely.
dance of each?
Hopefully that answers Mario's question. But next question would be, what would you consider your spirit animal to be?
Huh. I've never asked myself that question. So I would say, at first thought, I don't know if I consider any animal to be my spirit animal, but let's think. I'm very interested in dolphins.
Mm,
The studies and just, you know, the different types of intelligent communication that we've had with dolphins seem super intriguing. And
yeah.
it's been intriguing to me a lot of my life. Of course, as a person who absolutely loves to fly through the air and do gymnastics, I always was into like, you know, the dolphin shows and stuff.
Mhm,
So we could say that dolphins are very intriguing to me.
mhm.
Um, Birds also flying. Anything to do with flying is near and dear to my heart. That feeling of being airborne is just incredible.
Mm, absolutely. I mean, I love asking that question because of the different answers. Most people use birds, but to hear a dolphin, I love it because dolphins are very inquisitive, very curious creatures, and I definitely love that answer. The next question would be, is what did you want to be at 10 years old?
Hmm. Gotta try to remember. I'm pretty sure I wanted to be a gymnast and gymnastics coach at 10. I was still working at it, but I'm pretty sure that that's what I wanted to do. And if not that, there was definitely the thought of what can I do with dolphins. So I think think you got something in there around 10 years old. Between the humans and the dolphins, I definitely wanted to help somebody fly through the air.
Wow. I like that. I like that answer. Okay, next question. We're kind of still going into the mythical stuff is what would be, if you had, what would be your superpower?
Hmm. I mean, if we're going to continue in this direction, we'll probably go with the flight
Okay.
because I just love being airborne, boy. If I could
And you
fly
get to
for
where you got to
longer,
go.
hanging in the air, soaring somewhere. Yep, getting to wherever I have to go, no plane needed.
Okay.
That would be an incredible superpower.
Nice. All right. Let me say next question would be what are three places in terms of you can call it dance events or events just give you some of the best memories? I wouldn't say favorite, but most of us throughout our lives, there's always been specific events, festivals, congresses, you name it, that always just really have that special place. I know you probably have a lot more, but can you think of three events that really like just make you smile once you think of them?
Sure. Well, always got to give props to my city. So we'll
Mhm.
say Boston Salsa Fest because,
Okay.
Boston, born and raised. Gotta put it right there. Gonna throw out there Havana.
Okay.
Um, Havana, and I realize that's not an event, but I mean, it's just because just there are so many of those the little spots,
Mhm.
right, where the dancers go. Incredible dancing in Havana is wonderful for me, and I get the same type of feeling dancing in Las Terrenas in the
Mm.
Dominican Republic. Um, Dancing in those places, you just feel so connected, so incredible as you're moving. So those are great memories for me, all three of those. And I do also want to give a shout out to, I mean, Jimmy Anton's, we gotta say,
Mm.
longest running social in New York, right up there. LVG, not there as many years, but still just as dear
Yeah.
to my heart. So that space, I mean, Jimmy Anton's LVG, the space that they create for us to dance in New York is out of this world. That's where
Mm.
I go to refresh myself. Any of those spots.
Okay. I love it. I love it. The second before last question would be what is a special talent that many people wouldn't know you have?
So I found out recently, as I started doing gymnastics online, as I started putting my videos on, that people didn't know that I did gymnastics. So that is definitely something, and that I'm now practicing again. So getting back into that. So I guess sometimes people get surprised when they see that I can, like, bust out a flip or something
Yeah.
like that. So that could be one type of a hidden talent. And then I think the talent that I had been hiding, to
Yeah.
be honest, is the other side of my dancerness besides salsa. So I've been working on a lot and growing a lot in the area of contemporary, an
Mhm.
area that I never thought that I would have any capacity or skill in because I went to it so late. But I'm very passionate about it. Every moment that I'm doing contemporary dance, like Cuban contemporary or Horton technique, I'm just like in heaven. So I would say, I guess that's another skill that's a hidden skill because I don't use it on the dance floor per se, but
Yeah.
that's just definitely in there, and that I'm very, very passionate about. And when people see that, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you
Yeah.
dance like that." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't know I did either, but I guess I do."
Gotcha. And the last question, I love asking this question because the answers are so befuddling at times. But question is, you're on an island, but disclaimer, you have no Wi-Fi. And you might actually get this answer pretty smoothly. I mean, you just had finished an event or finished a nice little getaway in Costa Rica, but realizing you're on an island, there is no Wi-Fi. What are three things that you would have to have with you?
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Three things will be friends who dance,
Okay.
music,
Yes.
and a space to dance in,
Oh,
right? So, some type of lodging, I guess useful for sleeping and bathing and eating as well, but definitely needs to be lodging with space for us to be dancing.
okay. I love it. I love that answer. Because again, I just love that you love bringing people together. And again, I thank you for doing this segment. Yeah, and honestly, throughout this whole night, throughout this conversation, it's more than just an interview. Like you said, it's a conversation starter, and realizing that our minds are working in the same capacity. We may be in different areas, but our focus and our mission is really the same, is impacting other people's lives through dance, through having those conversations that sometimes may be deemed uncomfortable. But I definitely know tonight I've been able to learn so much more about you, Anara. I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate your contribution to the Boston community, but also abroad. Um, and I know and I hope you see how many people that you've impacted over the years, especially even here having Mario say, "It's great to see you and hear from you and about you after so many years." Realizing the people we miss dancing with and how much we kind of take dance for granted sometimes. So, realizing over the years what you've been able to accomplish with gymnastics, meta movements, and beyond. It's been a real pleasure having you on tonight. But at least before we do go, if you do have any really last words for myself and the audience.
Well, to start, I would just like to say thank you so much, Diamond. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And you're right, it does feel like we're kind of kindred spirits that have been
Yeah,
crossing paths over the years, but maybe not being enough in the same place at the same time,
yeah,
as I'm sure we will be after tonight. So it's been wonderful to talk to you, to get to know you a little better, both on the show and before the show. And I do hope that continues.
absolutely.
And I would also just like to say that for me, as a person who started life thinking I couldn't do anything with my body, a person who couldn't walk normally, run normally, do all the things that other people do, I am so thankful for dance and what it's brought into my life. And I hope that anybody out there who feels like that they have challenges with their body, whether they're from birth or whether they're from an accident or an
Mhm.
illness or something that happened along the way, that you find in yourself that there is something that you can do. And so I feel like that's my message, is that if you want help, let me know. I'm
Yes,
here. I'm glad to be a source of support in coming up with solutions. But I feel like that I want people to remember that no matter where you are at right now, no matter what you can do with your body right now, there's something that you could be connected to dance and music, and it's going to make it just that little bit better. So I'd love to be a part of that journey, and I hope to be able to continue to encourage people that it's there for you and that there's something you can do with it. Regardless of what it seems like you can do now, you're always going to be able to keep growing and changing and evolving, and dance is going to be there to support you.
yes. And honestly, I feel you really are a pillar in your community and abroad and beyond, and seeing someone who's going to watch this interview and learn so much more about you, but help them learn so much more about themselves, and realizing that you can heal through dance. And at least before we go, do you have any contact information on how people can reach you about future projects?
Sure, absolutely. So on Instagram and Facebook, I'm Anara Frank. So I'm easy to find on both of those in that way. And then, of course, the organization, the Artist Collective I'm a part of, is Meta Movements, METAMOVEMENTS. So goals and movements, transformation through movement. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, we have a website as well. And so people can contact us through either of those mediums, either myself directly or the collective. And we'd be happy to help people in their dance journeys as well.
Man, awesome. And Anara, again, tonight has been really inspiring because to see all of your efforts and to see the changes you've been able to make in your community, the different projects, the different events you've been able to create and allow people from the community and elsewhere to come and just really have fun and again have a safe space, a platform for them to grow, is something that I think our community as a whole, wherever you're from, should have that same approach. And again, seriously, Anara, tonight was amazing as well. Everyone listening, after this interview, we will be posting some recent films and visuals from Anara and the Meta Movements Company so you can stay updated and in the know. So, again, Anara, I thank you for an amazing night, inspiring, being able, like you said, us being kindred spirits and seeing that there are people in this community that really see the positive in it and really are rolling with that. It's something that I think everyone should take heed to. But I thank you, I thank the audience, and definitely, hopefully, stay safe. And when things definitely get back to normal, I definitely can't wait to connect.
Thank you so much, Diamond. It's been such a pleasure being with you here tonight. And I also want to thank all those people who chimed in and said hello. Can't wait to look back and see everybody. It will be awesome to see people here online, and it's going to be awesome to see people when this pandemic is over so we can be together in person. But in the meantime, let's keep using online, just like you are, Diamond. This is such an amazing platform. Let's keep tuning in, having these live conversations, and making sure that we stay connected and that we stay in touch during what is remaining of this time of pandemic so that we can all keep feeling that energy, not letting it drop. And then we're
Yeah.
ready to hit the ground full force, full speed ahead with our dancing as soon as this is over. And also big shout outs to my collective. So happy to be a part of this collective because I don't know where I'd be with this pandemic without y'all. So thank you.
Yes, man. It's been an amazing night. I thank you, Anara, for your time and your effort. I thank everyone who tuned in. Stay tuned for our next episode tomorrow with the legendary Super Mario. But tonight, again, Anara, was an amazing episode, a great start off to a good season coming up. So, again, hope all is well. Stay safe. And until next time.